Hello and welcome to Book World on Trust TV. Now on this show, we talk with African and international authors. We review books and adaptations while inspiring especially the younger generation into inculcating the habit of book reading. I am Sumaya Abubakar and today we will be talking about the book The Beautiful Thief. But let's take a short break, and when we come back, you get to meet the author of this wonderful book. Stay with us. Welcome back to Book World on Trust TV. Now, books create connections, between the author and the reader. The story is truly finished, and meaning it's made not when the author adds, the last period, but when the reader enters. That's the best connection. It's one of the best thing that is about books in general. Well, our guest for today is Abesadu Byanyiko. He is a former broadcaster, a Nigerian writer, and a filmmaker, and an author with his debut collections, The Beautiful Thief and Other Stories. Thank you for joining us, Alex.
Thank you so much, Sumaya.
Okay, so let's talk about the book. And, we'll get to the part where you have to link how, as a broadcaster before you transitioned to writing, even though you've been a writer for a while now. But then tell us about, at what point did you realize that you want to, publish a book of your own?
Well, I started writing even before joining TV, becoming a broadcaster. I've been writing since I was 16. But initially, the genre I was focused on was screenplay. That's writing drama, films. 2017, when I resigned from NTA, 2016, that was when I became serious as a member of the Abuja Writers Forum. So it was at that point that I thought that I should publish a book. So it was that time that I started working on the collection that finally made A Beautiful Thief and Other Stories.
So we're talking about how long now?
From 2017 to, it was published last year, 2022. I think it was about a period of 4 or 5 years or thereabout.
So why not poetry? People will be curious.
Well, and the irony, I started out as a creative person. I wanted to be a rapper.
Interesting.
So if anything, maybe poetry should have been the game for me. But I love storytelling. So I found out that I find more satisfaction when I'm writing stories than poetry. I write poetry once in a while, not always. I do that too, but my major focus is storytelling. And since right from day one, all I want to do is filmmaking, which is storytelling. So storytelling in different formats, whether screen or books. So that's why my focus right now is storytelling.
Okay, so storytelling is really a beautiful thing. But then when you started, you went in for a lot of, instead of one story, you decided to pour in different stories at the same time. Why was that? What was the inspiration behind that?
There's a lot happening in life, my experiences and the things happening with people around me. So because it's a collection of short stories, unlike a long form, which is like a novel or something, you have to look at the things that interest you, the things that captivated you as a person, and maybe some messages you want to pass across to whoever is going to read your book. That is why this collection is made up of different stories. And, as writers, you always write about things that sometimes affect you directly or indirectly. So you can say that this is a collection of my experiences and that of other people around me.
Which is a great thing. Every reader wants to have this connection with the author. And sometimes, apart from, just having the bio at the back of the page that tells you little about the author, when the author tells you that, okay, I am writing some part of my stories, that person gets to have an overview or deep thought of how the author is thinking. But then, Alex, walk us through, the various stories, because normally let me not say normally, some authors would prefer to have link, from one story
to the other.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
But then in yours, you did something different with it, which is sometimes the story are not really that connected.
Yes.
Why was that?
That's what I said. Life is made up of variety of experiences. Sometimes why or some authors write stories that are linked, they call it themed collection. Like every story should link to the other, like Abubakar Adam Ibrahim did in his book, a very beautiful one for that. When I remember, I'll talk about that. So this one now, various experiences from when I was young to when I become an adult. Even my experience in the television station also found a place in the book. So you want each of the story, different characters, independent stories from different experiences. I explored culture and tradition of my people, the Gbagi people. In another story, it's about somebody who gets into ministry, pastors. And if you are with us in Nigeria, you know that a lot of things is happening with spiritual fathers. Some are in for something else. Some are there for the real mission. So like that, different experiences, different characters. I wanted to tell stories of different things that had, affected me at that point in time to put it in a book. So I felt that's the way it should be.
It was the right platform.
It shouldn't be. Yes, they are independent stories altogether.
Independent stories. But, we're talking about connection. And you mentioned the ministry, the pastor.
Yes.
And I am curious, on behalf of the viewers, to know how the connection of that story is with you.
Okay. As a Christian, I go to church. And I follow some preachers. And I know the havoc that can happen to people if you are following the wrong person, the wrong minister. And in that particular story again, one of the message I try to pass across is the issue of a husband and wife being united, being on the same page when it comes to decision taking. If as a husband, you are going to the left and your wife thinks you should be going to the right, then it's going to affect the marriage. It's going to affect the relationship. So this is another thing that I wanted to point out in that particular story. And then the issue of whether or not this person is a man of God. If he is a man of God, then all challenges that will come his way, he will overcome it. Most likely, he should overcome it.
He should indeed. A very beautiful message there. So in the collection of stories, you have about 13 stories in there. And, I get an insight of a bit of them. So tell our viewers more, about these various stories.
Okay, like we have Drawbone. Drawbone is about a blogger who is worried about the country, Nigeria, things going wrong. So he's that kind of person that all he wants is to see that Nigeria has changed for a better place. That's all he's after. At a point, he's invited by a politician to be given an appointment. These days, if you're a critic of the government, sometimes there are many ways they want to discourage you. It's either to intimidate you or to buy you over. So they make several attempts to discourage him. It didn't work. To buy him over, it didn't work. This is somebody who the only thing that he is concerned with is seeing Nigeria become a better place. So that's about Drawbone. Then there's Runaway Angel, which I try to explore the issue of child abuse in a family. When you have a kid staying with you that is not yours, sometimes some people tend to be impatient. Not necessarily that they are wicked, or they want to maltreat that child. But some people become impatient when they are dealing with children that are not theirs.
True.
And for the character in that story, she left the village. She's taken from the village to the city. You will expect that she would enjoy it because she's now in the city.
I mean, that's a lot of stories that we watch in movies.
Exactly. But because of the experiences that she goes through there, she feels, I would rather go back to the village and be eating whatever my parents are eating and stay in that downtrodden village rather than being in the city.
The peace of mind is the most important thing. All right, so let's take a quick pause on that one, Mr. Alex. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, of course, the show continues, because I mean, there's really interesting conversation here about this beautiful book called The Beautiful Thief. Stay with us.
Hello guys, welcome to Showtime.
I don't even believe there's any other industry that will handle me like movie industry.
Yeah.
I told you I'm deep and soaked into movie industry.
In secondary school, there's Fatima and Mariam Adamu, and then we sort of took the names of the characters in that cartoon.
I think entertainers themselves need to wake up and smell the coffee and say, diversification is the way to go. Yes, you can sing or make great beats or, act in a film, but what else can you do?
I became one of the best makeup artists in Nigeria. I won AMA Award Best Makeup Artist.
Do you think we are I read the food when I talk to you, you start straight. Attention!
Welcome back to Book World on Trust TV, and we're talking to the author, Alex Abesadu Byanyiko. I hope I did justice to that name, Mr. Alex.
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about, the book, The Beautiful Thief, where you mentioned a lot of stories. I mean, you even said one of the collection is about your tribe, the Bagi people. Yeah. And that was what I was worried about, murdering your name.
It's okay, you try. You try.
Okay, so what is, the thought behind you bringing out a story about your people also, in order to get readers to communicate? Because we're in an era where even though Africans are growing to show their culture and tradition more, we're still left behind, forgetting that even the Westerners appreciate the African culture. So what was your thoughts behind that?
Well, you see, the Bagi people have one of the most beautiful culture and tradition in the world. You should see their dance. So many interesting things in the Bagi nation. And much has not been told of the Bagi people. So as a Bagi person, I feel, and as a privileged writer, it's my responsibility to showcase to the world what a beautiful culture and tradition the Bagi people have. So that's one of the inspiration. Another one is to, explore our traditional beliefs. As a Christian, the belief system is different from traditional belief. There are things that worked for our forefathers in the past, and the things that are working for us today is different, even though there are other people who still do practice the traditional worship. But I was curious, how would that be for me now if I was born into the world of traditional worship? That's one of the things that inspired my exploring into that aspect of the Bagi culture and tradition. So I bring it face to face with modern times. So the clash of interest between traditional belief and the Western belief. The character, by the way, is a student of medicine. So imagine a medical student who is said to be going through some things that have, traditional forces behind it. She falls sick, swollen stomach, swollen legs, and she's told that she's been attacked by the gods for a wrong that a member of her family committed.
Interesting. And we all know how scientists don't believe in
exactly.
Like
so
that.
Scientists don't believe in that. And she, as a medical student, it's a difficult thing to believe. So let me stop there. If you want to know more, you have to read the story.
You truly piqued the interest of, I'm sure the viewers and myself also. All right, so let's talk about, your debut. I mean, you've mentioned that you've been an active member of the Abuja Writers Forum, and also, this book actually has been shortlisted for different various awards. Tell me how you feel about that.
Well, I feel encouraged. One thing about nominations and winning awards, it doesn't really mean that your work is the best. I say this without any fear of contradiction, because sometimes when you send materials for a contest, it depends on the interest of the judges. So you can see that, and another thing is that, art is a subjective matter. Two of us can look at the same work of art and we'll see it differently. So the fact that some people recognize that the work was worthy of being shortlisted, it gives you encouragement. It tells you that maybe you're learning something and maybe you can make something out of this business.
True, indeed. So speaking about business, how is it going so far? As someone who is new to publishing a book of his own.
Okay, the book industry in Nigeria suffers a lot of setbacks. We don't have enough structures like other people do. But, and then we're dealing with a society that maybe majority do not seem to appreciate the value of books. They say that people are busy. In fact, I can share an experience with you, an uncle whom I told I was working on a book. I told me that, why are you telling me this? I don't read books. I have no business with books. Okay, so that's part of it. But it's challenging. It's challenging in the sense that the structures needs improvement. But it's inspiring. Because as a writer, you are writing to express yourself. That's the number one objective. It's not really about making money. But that's not to say that I don't want to make money. I want to be one of the richest authors on earth. So I'm not about just being an author without money in my pockets. But the most important thing is the message I want to pass across. And if your book changes one life, then you're fulfilled. That's the way I feel about it.
It's a beautiful thought right there. Very artistic thought, I would say. All right. So, no matter how much, just like you mentioned, it doesn't mean you don't want to make money. But then do you think that there is need, for a better structure to be created for a platform like this? Because we notice that a lot of this generation are ignoring, picking up a book to read or valuing a book, just like you mentioned earlier. So do you think perhaps, the Writers Forum should create more programs or literary events, book readings in order to help, manage this situation?
Yes, I would applaud Nigerian writers. They're trying. The various writing organizations or associations in Nigeria are trying. But the challenge has always been funding. I'm sure if writers had it, that cash, that lots of money, they would have been doing it themselves. It's just like the movie industry, how it suffered without any form of support from the government until they got to where they are today, and everybody is, proud of what Nollywood is doing. So that's what's also happening to the book industry. There's need for structures. There's need for well-to-do individuals to support the industry. You see, there are some shows that I would not like to mention their names here that enjoy a lot of support from corporate bodies and well-to-do individuals. That's what should be happening to the book industry too. You understand? There are a few organizations like the NLNG who gives awards of $100,000 to authors that win their yearly contest. That is very good, but we need many more of such. In Nigeria, other countries, Western world, are doing a lot of that. So we need more Nigerians to do that, to encourage the industry.
If there is one thing we all agree with is, the lack of a lot of financial reward, when it comes to art in general. But then you mentioned you're a filmmaker and, books, the writing, the adaptations of books into movies, stage play, dramas is something that could earn, you can make a living out of. And also it tends to, explore or uplift your books, because we've seen a lot of major books that have been turned into movies, and it made it more appreciated, more valuable. So what's your take on that?
It's a very good one, because the movie industry too is a storytelling medium, as I said earlier. Without storytellers, there won't be films, and it's funny that the movie industry so many of them do not seem to appreciate the role of storytellers, because there are some producers that all they want is, they just want stories. They just want to make money. The difference is that people who write books take more time to do that. You understand? But some people want to make a movie tomorrow, and they bring you into there as a writer and say, write a story for me. That's a problem. You talked about adaptation of books into films. That's how it should be. That's what Hollywood does sometimes. You know, they look at books that are very good, and especially when they love the plots, and they adapt it into a movie, and it makes the work even more popular. And sometimes even the movie industry just try to cash on the successes of the book already. Once a book is successful, then you tend to see producers coming to say, I want to adapt this movie. We want to see more of producers adapting stories that maybe from authors that are not well known. There are authors that are not well known whose materials are solid. You understand? And that will help the industry. It will help the movie industry, and it will help the book industry, because better storytelling is what makes movies sell.
Indeed. All right, let's talk about, the message of this book. While compiling this book, you mentioned few of the stories that you want people to just get a message from. But in general, while putting up all these collections, what is your thoughts? Like, what did you want the reader to take home with, to live with at the end of the page?
Okay. One of the things is appreciating ourselves as a people, our cultures and tradition. Another thing is hope. Then another thing is self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice in the sense that we just want this country to be a better country. And we want people that will be courageous enough to say, I want, as far as I live, to make a contribution, to leave Nigeria a better place than I made it. So that's my own, to inspire, to spark up the brains that will make the change. As Tupac would, would say.
Authors always do that. They leave you with a book. Just like you mentioned earlier, that sometimes we can read the same book but have different perspectives. Yes. So authors write, and then they have a thought in mind while writing it. But then it's up to the reader to think and start thinking, is this what the author was thinking? Interesting one there. All right, Mr. Alex, walk us through the challenges, because we know it's not easy. It's not always easy. It's just sit up and write a book. You mentioned earlier about the time it takes, to couple all the stories and all the dots, dot the I's and the T's and cross the T's. So what is the challenge that you went through in, bringing all the stories together? And at what point did you tell yourself, I have to push through to finish this?
Wonderful, interesting question, because every author goes through this, no matter where they are today. The starting point is always difficult, very difficult. I am privileged in the sense that I really didn't have to go around sourcing for funds. You understand? That's the advantage that I have, but I know many people don't have that. So I was able to raise all the money needed for this book to come by myself, and I did that. But it was challenging, because I would have preferred to have maybe someone that believes in what I'm doing to say, look, I'm funding this project. I would have preferred it that way, but it didn't happen that way. But all the same, it's your dream. You have to find a way to make it come through. The challenge, as I said, is always funding. That's what many authors are going through. There are authors with brilliant ideas, but because they don't have the funding, it becomes a problem. And if you want to be a good writer, you need to dedicate a lot of time into it. And you want to put food on the table. So you can only imagine how challenging that can be.
Indeed.
You understand? I've been working on a novel in the last 3 months now. And that means I have to suspend everything. As I said, I'm a filmmaker. I've been working on a documentary. But that has to lay low for now, because I have to finish this work. So for instance, if this book raked in enough money for me, then maybe it wouldn't have been as challenging as it is right now. You understand? But
indeed, I understand you on that one. All right, Mr. Alex, normally we review some parts of the page of the book, so go ahead and open up, a page that you're going to read for us out there.
Okay. Let me go through the titled story, which is Beautiful Thief. Oh, sorry, I opened it before. And yeah, Beautiful Thief. Beautiful Thief. Anthony burst into the undeveloped lot to escape his pursuers, but trips over a stone and sprawls to the ground in a tangle of limbs. Before he can stand, the boy in pole position among those chasing him, a tall, muscular fellow wearing a white t-shirt with a red inscription on the chest, "I am Big Gro," seizes him by the collar of his shirt. Another pursuer, nicknamed Black Q, grabs Anthony by the waistline of his dark brown trousers and rams a fist into his stomach. Anthony's knees collapse like a plank devoured by termites, and he crashes to the ground. His shirt rips off at the collar, pia, leaving a piece in the hand of Big Gro. "Kill the thief! Kill him!" Florence, a petite, pretty girl in a delicate white gown, screams as she pants to a stop beside them. "God has caught him today. Thief! Thief!" Anthony tries to stand, staggers back weakly. Big Gro's huge fist slams into his face and sends his slim, feeble frame flying back like a flimsy piece of cellophane back.
Okay, I think we'll stop there. There's a lot of details, which is really interesting. Just tell us a quick story, like quickly. What's the story behind that particular page?
Well, it's about survival. The major character there is a staff of a local government, and you know how small their salary is. And he happens to be in a local government where they don't even pay them salaries for months.
So he steals and then he's beautiful?
His daughter is sick and he needs money to take her to the hospital. He doesn't have money. So he's forced to go steal a drug, a medicine, just so that he can save his daughter.
Okay, I think let's pick the interest of the readers. That's really interesting. I really appreciate the details, of everything, even the peer you made mention.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us, on the program Book World today. That's Alex Abesadu Byanyiko, the author of The Beautiful Thieves and other stories. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right, so according to Louis Leamore, he said, once you have read a book that you care about, of course, then some part of it is always with you, which I agree with. And that is it on today's episode of Book World on Trust TV. I am Sumaya Abubakar. I hope that you enjoyed the episode today. Thank you so much for watching, and do not forget to always read a book. Until next time, bye-bye.